in it to win it mode. Matt Zuccarello certainly was in it to win it mode as the Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-2 win over the Arizona Coyotes. Marc-Andre Fleury had a dandy of a night. Brock Faber, multi-point game. Kirill Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek do the heavy lifting as well. We'll take a look at the first game in the post-Brandon Duhaime era, plus a look at what to expect before the trade deadline tomorrow on tonight's Locked On Wild Postcast. The doctor will see you now.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into tonight's Locked On Wild Postcast as the Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-2 win over the Arizona Coyotes in the first game in the post-Brandon Duhaime era. Welcome in, everybody. And this was an interesting game because for a while it was ho-hum. Then it went completely off the rails. And then the Wild were able to take control and come away with the win. Couple things to point out here right off the drop. You've got your heavy lifters in Kirill Kaprizov, who scores his 30th goal of the season. And for Caprizov, that puts him in rarefied territory. I want to make sure that I get this correct because Kirill Kaprizov joined Marian Gaborik in a particular category here this evening. With the goal tonight, Caprizov has now reached 30 goals in 3 consecutive seasons, joining Marian Gaborik and Brian Rolston as the only players in franchise history to accomplish that feat. I got to be honest with you, I did not expect 30 goals from Kirill Kaprizov considering how the season started. Just a rough start to the season for him. But 30 goals for Kirill Kaprizov, 29 goals for Eriksson Ek, who continues to have a career year. And we'll talk more about Eriksson Ek here in a second because it turns out, according to the fans, he is getting some Selke Trophy love as he should here this season. You also have goals from Brock Faber, picks up his 5th goal of the season, a multi-point effort for Brock Faber, which was great to see because Faber's been scuffling a little bit here over the last couple of weeks. And then Connor Dewar gets into double digits himself with an empty netter to seal the scoring. Zach Bogosian scored tonight in this one as well. And Marc-Andre Fleury had just, it was just vintage Marc-Andre Fleury here tonight as he had some crazy saves early on in this one. But I'm burying the lead. I am burying the lead as Adam Beckman had an assist on Connor Dewar's empty net goal at the end of the game. And so congratulations to Adam Beckman, who has done something that Freddie Gaudreau and Marcus Johansson have failed to do quite often in the last 20 to 30 games. He gets on the score sheet with a point. And we'll talk about Beckman's night here tonight, as well as just to look at some of the other players here tonight. We're going to go with, we got a new thing that we're going to do throughout the rest of the season. I am going to be handing out impact letter grades for this one for all games. And we'll have A through F. There will be some players that have not great impacts, and there will be some players that have really good impacts. So we're going to be tracking that, and hopefully some of the young guys will be able to come away with solid impacts here down the stretch. But the thing that is funniest to me is you obviously have the whirlwinds of today with Brandon Duhaime getting traded and just kind of sucked the life out of the entire roster here today. Sucked the life out of the room, and it just kind of, I think, signifies to this team that this is it. This is our official focus to the future. But as was already pointed out in the comments, that seems like it appears as though unless an offer comes in that really blows Bill Guerin out of the water, it appears as though that is going to do it for your 2024 NHL trade deadline from a Minnesota Wild perspective, which is it again just is perfectly encompassing of this team and the continuance of them to try to be something that they just at this point are not. So that was fun, but yeah, it's just the reality of the situation is this team is now 29-33, 29, 27-6 for those that like to still think that that's above 500. And you beat an Arizona Coyotes team that has just been in the pits for large stretches of the season. Marc-Andre Fleury was good tonight. So that is, it's fun to see him still have something in the tank that makes you wonder if he is truly going to be done at the end of this season. And if not, that is going to get some trade gears turning for the Minnesota Wild goalie situation if he would decide to continue to play. But let's hand out our high impacts here for tonight. And we're going to start with I'm going to give out A through F in terms of high impact for various Wild players. And feel free to give out your own grades in the comments. And so we're going to start with an A impact for tonight's game. And I'm actually going to go to Brock Faber for the A impact here tonight, which is really good to see because look at all these things. I'm going to go A for Faber and Brodin tonight. Brock Faber had a goal and an assist. He was a +3 tonight. He had one shot. He had 5 blocked shots in 25 minutes here tonight. And so just filled out the score sheet. It was great to see. He got the empty net goal at the end. It's been, I think, a stretch in which Faber is fighting through just an injury and fatigue at this point in the season. And so for him to be able to have that big of an impact, I got to give him the A impact here tonight for this Wild team. For Jonas Brodin, had an assist. He was also a +3, had one shot, had 6 blocks, had a hit as well in 25 minutes of time on ice himself. So that D pairing really did some wonders. Those two, the dynamic duo defensively, those two really did some good things with Jake Middleton, a late scratch here today. So A impact, I'm going to both Brock Faber and Jonas Brodin. For the B impact here today, I'm going to go with Matt Zuccarello. 3 assists. He had 4 shots on goal, had a hit, had the key turnover forced that allowed Joel Eriksson Ek to score his goal here in this one. Had just, I think, a nice game here for the Minnesota Wild. And so I'm going to go Matt Zuccarello with the B impact in this one tonight. Hear me out on this. I'm going to go for the C impact because I wanted to make sure to give him credit. I'm going to go a C impact for Adam Beckman here tonight. He had 2 hits in 12 minutes of time on ice. He also recorded an assist. And so I thought it was a solid all-around game for Beckman tonight. I just would like to see a little more in just in the shots department. Just would like to see a few more shots on net for Beckman, but beyond that, I mean, the fact that he got nearly 13 minutes of ice time tonight, I really was a huge fan of that. And it's all about, for these young guys, making an impact. So I thought that was good for Beckman tonight. Look forward to seeing how he kind of ups the ante in a tougher game tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche. For your D impact here tonight, see, this is now where things are going to get tricky. Okay. Here's where we'll go for D. I'm going to go with Rossi here in this one. And this is a tough love approach for Rossi. Had 2 penalties tonight, just had a struggle of a night, but it's not an indictment on what he's done this season. It's just he just had an off night. And so there's still plenty of season left. Tomorrow is a new day. He still works hard. It's not as though he is, giving up out there on the ice. It's just things did not go well for Rossi in this one. And so I'll go the D impact for Rossi in this one. And I think we know where the F is going. I'm going to let the comments be the ones to announce who gets the F impact here tonight. I guess I'll say F plus, because he did record a block. And look, he's been better. He's been much better here over the last couple of weeks. And so it's not for so we're all over the place with the guesses here. We got a guess for Freddie Gaudreau. Honestly, you could I'll preemptively go the F impact for general manager Billy Guerin for this one. I was going to say John Merrill, but honestly, he was I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say Merrill, because I can't really rip him. He's been better here recently, and Freddie Gaudreau had 3 shots on net in 17 minutes of time on ice. So I will, for only getting the one trade done and making it sound like that is all that's going to happen, I'm going to go with your general manager for the F impact here. Now, obviously, there were other players that made contributions in this one tonight. Kirill Kaprizov scored a power play goal. Eriksson Ek scored. Connor Dewar scored. Ryan Hartman had a couple of assists, as well as 3 blocks. He also had a hit, and he was 6 of 8 in the faceoff circle. So there were other guys that had impact in this game. So I'm not trying to suggest that 5 players were the only ones that did. Just kind of a new spin on how to react to these games. And frankly, I just wanted to find a reason to give Brock Faber an A, because I thought he had a real nice, solid game here. Dakota Mermis as well. This is something we have been accustomed to throughout this season, is just seeing solid play from Dakota Mermis. He, despite being called for a penalty, he had 5 hits in 14 minutes. He had a shot on net. He had a block, and new owner. There were a lot of solid performances in this one tonight, even though it looked like early on in the third period that we were in for another one of those here we go again games with the 2 goals in 7 seconds. How many times are we going to see 3 goals or 2 goals in the span of less than 10 seconds against the Wilds? let's just try to have more of those instances like we had against Vancouver, where you get 5 goals in a 5-minute span. So, all in all, it was and the fact that there was a goal overturned by offside. We have to get to the point where we rely on replay less, because if you can frame by frame it, you can make anything offsides in the NHL. I'm sorry. I'm reacting to a John Merrill comment in the chat that that one got me. So we got a lot to talk about here tonight, because we had some polls done on Twitter in regards to various NHL awards. And would you believe it, the Minnesota Wild had a few players that cracked the top 10. And so we'll take a look at those. We will get to your comments. Denny is here, so we'll get to your comments in reaction to tonight's game, or taking a look at the trade deadline as well. 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you want my thoughts on any of the other trades that have happened throughout the NHL, we'll get to all that as we continue tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. The Minnesota Wild win tonight by a score of 5-2, and we will take your comments after this here on Locked on Wild. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast is brought to you by Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast also brought to you by Factor. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. There are also more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. Folks, as somebody who is routinely on the go for work and working long days, there's nothing I dread more than coming home and having to put together some sort of food for dinner. And look, I like to cook too, but I also enjoy being able to just pop a Factor meal in the microwave for 2 minutes, and the food is far better than I could throw together myself. It's delicious. It's healthy. It is something that you truly have to experience to believe. We've done the math too. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So head to factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 and use code LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LOCKEDONNHL50 at factormeals.com/LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off. factormeals.com/LOCKEDONNHL50. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild Postcast. The Minnesota Wilds pick up a 5-2 win over the Arizona Coyotes here this evening and pick up their 29th win of the season. Hooray! Still 29-33 on the year, and let's take a look at what this means for the beloved Tankathon standings. Minnesota Wild still at 9th. They are now tied with the New Jersey Devils with 66 points. The Devils do have one more win, but also one more loss and 2 fewer overtime losses than the Minnesota Wild. So it's 31-32 versus 30. Wait a minute. How could that be? Probably because I am an idiot. Yep, there it is. So it's 30-33. Okay, so it is one fewer win and one fewer loss compared to New Jersey, but still 9th in the Tankathon standings with 66 points, 3 more points than Buffalo for 8th in the draft lottery. First crack at the Tankathon, and we stay at 9. So that is probably how that is going to play out. Unless this team loses a few more games, and there certainly are some losable ones in the on the schedule as we go. Let's start with David tonight for our comment section. I want to say this about Billy G. I don't mind re-signing, bringing in the vets like Bogosian, Maroon, Merrill, if it means the young guys in Iowa get more time to develop. I will say this on the Zach Bogosian front. I think with the assumption, I think Bogosian was re-signed with the assumption that John Merrill will be moved probably in the offseason and as insurance for Jared Spurgeon in the event that he's not able to be with the team to start the season or if he suffers an injury next year. And in that light, I still don't have a problem with that signing. There's no trade protections involved with the Bogosian extension. And that has been Bill Guerin's preference since he took over as GM of this team, is to have a good mix of veterans on this team. And those guys are not, I think, the big issue with this roster, because you're not signing Zach Bogosian to be a top pairing defenseman. You're not signing you're not trading for Pat Maroon to have him be a top line winger. You're signing those guys and acquiring those guys to fill bottom spots in the lineup. And that's how that should be. Look at all these teams at the trade deadline that are going out and acquiring bottom 6 help or middle 6 help or a defenseman that can play maybe second pairing or third pairing. All of these teams at the trade deadline go and get those guys to fill spots on the roster because they have their top 6 set and locked in. Or if you're the Colorado Avalanche, you took a flyer on Ryan Johansson. That did not work out at all. And so you make a trade from a position of strength, this case defense, and you go out and you get Casey Middlestat to be your second center. That's why those teams continue to stay relevant in the postseason conversation is because they are continually cultivating the bottom portion of the roster. And you have to, if you are a team like the Avs, who has as much money locked into their top level guys as they do. They've had good players leave. Nazem Kadri left. Andre Burakovsky left. You've had top level, you've had high quality talent leave because you can't afford them, as opposed to just locking in everything that you have and not allowing yourself the flexibility to pivot. That's a word I don't think general managers use enough, because you can have your ultimate vision for what your team is supposed to be, and you have to be able to pivot out of that plan or pivot to a different part of that plan in quick time. And this, I think that's kind of one of the rubs of Bill Guerin, is that he has locked in all of these players with trade protections that don't give you as much of that flexibility to be able to pivot. And we're not talking major rebuild. We're not talking strip it down to the studs and build it back up. But again, Bowen Byram is not nothing. The Avs gave up a young defenseman who has the potential to be a darn good one for the Buffalo Sabres. But they pivoted because that was an area of strength, and second line center was a weakness for the Avs. So you have to be able to pivot from season to season. And I think that is that's, I think, kind of where some of the frustration lies. We are rebuilding and staying somewhat competitive. It's not like we're getting run over in one game per week like the Sharks. And this is true too. It's a roster that has been good enough to win some games this year, but we have definitely seen the limitations to this roster. And that is the hope, is that these prospects can help fill those spots, because you've got all these guys that profile as middle six. The hope is that your Murat Kuznetsov, your Danila Yurov, who, thanks to some of the YouTube commenters, were able to sleuth out, I think it was Trav or Mike, I do believe, we're able to sleuth out that Danila Yurov's minutes are getting cut again on his KHL team. And so if that's going to continue to happen, there's potential that he just decides to come here and sign, as opposed to staying at the KHL for another year. So him, Murat Kuznetsov, Liam Ugrin, those are kind of the big three that you hope can profile into top six, or at the least middle six guys, to help flesh out this lineup a little bit. Denny, the comment captain, I believe this was Fleur's best game this year. That save that he had to rob that birdie tap-in goal on the back end was, I think, one of the best that he's had all season. I think that was one of, and maybe you give the edge to and it wasn't even a save necessarily. It was just he scared the Columbus guy to the point that he missed a wide open net. That probably still is number one for me, but in terms of saves, the one that he had tonight to rob like a point blank opportunity was just great. And yeah, he still has it, folks. He still has it, even at this stage in his career. I would agree with this statement. However, I am worried about the prospects development in Iowa. This is a legitimate concern, I think, considering everything that we've seen from that Iowa Wild team that has mostly been a mess this season. You've got your young defenseman prospects that are supposed to be like the next wave of guys that just are flat out not having standout performances. And I'm pulling up the Iowa Wild stats right now and the standings. The beauty of having multiple monitors to be able to check multiple things at multiple times. Just looking at the Iowa Wild right now, they are 19, 30, and 3 with 18 games remaining. They got 43 points, which is tied for last in the Central Division. They have scored 134 goals this season. They have allowed 188. And the 188 allowed is the most in the Central Division. And it is the number 1, 2. It is the third most, as far as I can tell, third most goals allowed in the entirety of the AHL, which is that's not great, but you see these, you've got all these guys that are supposed to be the next wave of defenseman prospects. And as I sort this out, Carson Lambos, for instance, he's got 12 points in 52 games. He is a minus 14 on the season. Simon Johansson is a minus 16. Ryan O'Rourke is a minus 29 in 53 games. David Spacek, even, who is another, maybe not as high of a prospect, but is still a depth guy, and he's a minus 10. And so it makes you wonder, like, what are these defensemen working on? Like, what are these prospects working on down at the Iowa level? Jake Lucchini, who's been with the Wilds for a while now, still fourth on the team in goals this season. And, even to a little different perspective, Jesper Wallsted's numbers, he's now 16, 15, and 2 on the season, 2.81 goals against average, and a .906 save percentage. If you look at his game log, he has really, since the start of the year, 4 goals allowed, 3 goals allowed, 4 goals allowed, 8 goals allowed, 2 goals allowed, 1 goal allowed, 4 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals. He's become more of a 3 or a 4 goal allowed player than 1 or 2. And the team in front of him is not great. And so do you hang all of that on the goalie? I think I know they didn't want to just outright get rid of Brett McLean, but I think you have to find somebody that has a little more experience as a head coach, put them at the Iowa level so that they can, you have to treat Iowa, both the Heartlanders and the Wild, you should be treating that as like an extension of what you're doing at the NHL level. You should have systems that you put in place, that you have your young prospects try to develop into. But it feels like it's just a team that's kind of doing their thing. And it's just something that I think is going to need to be addressed in the offseason. Oh, cool. Let me why did we have a Rangers fan in here? That was odd. I don't know what was going on there. So that Rangers fan is gone. That was fun. Anyway, I'm going to catch up and we're just going to get back on track here. Yeah, the Jake Gensel trade just going down here a little bit ago. It's an interesting return, to say the least, for a guy who I think can definitely make an impact for that Carolina team. And that Carolina team is super dangerous. They just need some goalie play. And so maybe they go get, could I interest you in a Marc-Andre Fleury for one? The Wild had those systems with Tim Army, and that trickled down through Dean. Yeah, it feels like, and maybe it's a situation where John Hines needs the offseason to implement, but it feels like don't talk to me about Tim Army. It feels like you went out to the movies and you left the kids at home to kind of fend for themselves, and you didn't hire a babysitter. You just said, oh, they'll be fine. And you come home, both the toilets are flooded. Somebody plugged up the bathtub and is just letting that run. There's water in all the sinks. People are coloring on the walls. Somebody threw a remote in the microwave and put it on 15 minutes. Like it very much feels like the parents left the kids, in this case the Iowa Wild, to just kind of fend for themselves. And hopefully that gets addressed in the offseason, because it's to the point now, folks, where, and we're going to do a lot of draft coverage. I'm really excited about the plan that I'm going to unveil for the draft, because with the Wild having a legitimate chance here to finish somewhere between 10 and 15, there are a lot of different possibilities for who they could take, but it's feeling like they've got a real good opportunity here to go with a defenseman, and a defenseman that can be an impact guy. Because right now, it does not feel like they've got any defensemen in the pipeline that can be impact guys. That can change. That can certainly change. I don't think we're throwing the bust label on any of those defense prospects. It's just at this point, they talked about this in the latest Worst Seats in the House, because apparently Anthony LaPanta is of the mindset that none of the Wild prospects have done anything that warrants playing time at the NHL level. You got to earn it. You got to earn the opportunity to get to the NHL level and play NHL minutes for this Minnesota Wild team. I'm trying to stop the headache that's coming as I'm talking. So that's the LaPanta opinion. is that nobody like Adam Beckman or any of the other players, they haven't done anything to deserve time at the NHL level. And while that's the I guess the take there, I would say it's one thing to not warrant, but it's also one thing to not be ready. And so we can talk all we want about these forwards not getting an opportunity. I don't think any of the other defensive prospects other than Damon Hunt, I don't think any of those guys are ready for full-time action. So it would be nice to have one or two of them up here, and they'll get up here in due time, but they're not ready now. Let's backtrack, because I like this question from Adam. What could this team get for Kaprizov? What if we were going to actually trade Kaprizov? I think the fact that Kirill has righted his own ship and has 30 goals now. He's got 30 goals. He is, at least at last look, he was getting close to an 88 or an 89 point season, considering that he missed time. Just is just absurd with what he is what he's able to do. I think you would be able to get a first round pick for sure. I think you could ask for a young, ready NHLer and a top-end prospect. I think that's an easy ask considering what Kirill Kaprizov is. He's a top-line player. He is an impact offensive player. And you put him on any of the contenders in the playoffs right now, and like if you put him on the New York Rangers, for example, who I think could use a little scoring. They were in on Jake Gensel before that ended up being the Carolina Hurricanes trade. You put Caprizov in the New York Rangers. Good Lord. Good luck with that. So you could ask for a high price for him. If you were going to trade him. So, and that's a question. That's a question that could potentially come up if Kaprizov says those words that all of us are hoping to never hear. Those three little words. I hate Merrill. No, those three little words. I want out. If he would ever utter those words, then that'd be what you'd be looking at, I think, is a benchmark, is a first-round pick, a NHL-ready young player, and a top prospect. I think that'd be your starting point. You could probably get more than that because you could get a bidding war going if they wanted to get to that point. And honestly, I'll say it again. I'm not worried about Kirill re-upping here. I don't think that's going to be a problem. The problem is what happens if during his extension, if he says, I would like to go see what the rest of the United States have in store. So good question, Adam. Just looking at the potential return for Kirill Kaprizov if in some other universe he just decides he's had enough of John Merrill and just wants to be done. Jake Gensel making the home trip, the return home this offseason. So let's talk about this. I like where Denny's at, because hear me out on this, ladies and gents. I think with how this season has gone, I don't think with as much as this next season is just kind of a transition year, like still have the Parise Suter cap hits, still not able to use that money. I don't think you can run status quo back with this team next year, which means that I think we will see some action in the offseason. As much as Bill Guerin insists that still believes in this group, still has no regrets on all those contracts, Craig Leopold's not going to tolerate 2 seasons of no playoff action. And so honestly, you're probably going to have to make some changes. Alex Goligoski will be gone, so that will be a spot that needs filling. But it wouldn't surprise me if Guerin moves 1 or 2 pieces to try to just get a fresh face on this thing. And this is where then bringing somebody else in to try to help out could be a possibility for sure. So I won't rule it out. It depends on what the market is for Jake Guentzel. And we'll see what happens. Hoptics is here. What's happening, Hoptics? You know what's crazy? We could legitimately make the playoffs by accident based on our schedule. We just need the Knights, the Kings, or the Preds to start losing, and it may be unavoidable. You had me until the we just need, because how many times this season, Hoptics, have we seen if we could only get, or if we could just get, or if not for, and that thing that we need to have happen never does. I'll take a peek at the postseason standings just for giggles here. As of right now, the Minnesota Wilds are 7 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights. The Los Angeles Kings have vaulted ahead of the Golden Knights for 3rd place in the Pacific Division. Vegas has lost 4 straight. They are 2-7-1 in their last 10. Vegas has made some trades and could still make a couple of big ones before the deadline tomorrow. So call me crazy, but I would not bet against the Golden Knights falling out of it. Nashville is 9-0-1 in their last 10. And the Los Angeles Kings are 6-3-1 in their last 10. But you now have to vault St. Louis, who is entertaining the thought of getting rid of Pavel Buchnevich, still in front of you. The Seattle Kraken, who have traded a couple of pieces off of their roster, still in front of you. The Calgary Flames, who have traded Noah Hannafin. They're apparently the New Jersey Devils are going to try to get Jacob Markstrom again. They're still in front of the Minnesota Wild. And so it's just not looking great. You got to have all of that go well, and Nashville and Vegas have to fall off the pace. So that's where we're at. Edmonton Oilers fan in here tonight. Kings going to fall off. Hey, I love the fact that the Oilers are putting the heat on the old Vancouver Canucks. 4 games in hand and within striking distance. I love that. Keep it up. Keep it going. The Edmonton Oilers are indeed good. I saw Pat Maroon comment here. Where did it go? If we break even on Maroon, I'd be happy. I think it was a 7th round pick for Pat Maroon and the $800K that he cost in salary to come here. It'll be interesting to see if the Wild get any offers for him. If Bill Guerin gets any phone calls, he should be willing to make moves because it would be real nice to be able to just insert Murat Kuznetsov into the mix without having to have it be a chair juggling situation. And you've already had the spot open by Duhaime. And so just would be nice to have 1 or 2 spots. What is happening in the comments section now? I was throwing legitimate compliments, Edmonton. I wasn't trolling. Let's trade Maroon for a bag of pucks and that future considerations prospect we hear about all the time. Fleury doesn't look like a 40-year-old goalie who is ready to retire. This might be crazy, but I think he will play again next season. And if that is the case, we should take what we can get for Gus. I'm very intrigued by this line of thinking because think about this. Philip Gustafsson, I think we are safe to say that Philip Gustafsson last year was the best you'll get. That's the best that Philip Gustafsson has to offer. And look, that's not a diss on Gus. He was amazing last year. He had a fantastic season. He has not lived up to it this year. He's been very hit or miss, very inconsistent, very up and down. If he's not going to get back to the level that he was at last year, is a step above what he's doing now, is that worth having on the roster? Would you rather have him and Jesper on the roster next year? Or would you rather have Marc-Andre Fleury one final go mentoring Wallstedt? Honestly, if I was given my choice, I'd take Flower and Jesper next year, because it's not a season that you're expecting to really do a ton. These restraints are these cap restraints. The last 2 years before this year, the Wild have been able to overcome those. But to do that multiple seasons, that's a tough ask. And so if it's going to be a season in which you transition further into development, why not give Jesper the full season to follow Flower around, to learn from him, to soak up knowledge from him like a sponge? That'd be hard to pass up. And honestly, that would, if you ask Jesper, he would probably be elated for that. Regardless of what the results look like for him, give him an opportunity to go to war with Fleury every day next season. And if Jesper has a rough start, go pick Fleury's brain. Go pick his brain and see if what he notices. And I think that would actually, low key would be, that might be my clubhouse leader now. At this point, the question then becomes, what are you going to get for Gus? And the fact that he's got term, and honestly, his salary isn't anything crazy. It's middle of the pack in terms of goalie salaries. So it's not like it's a crazy amount of money that you're having to move. If I'm Guerin, I'm entertaining it at least this offseason. Knowing Bill Guerin like we do, it's not going to happen, but I don't know. It's something to think about. If we did get that combination, you definitely have to call them the Wallflowers. There will be, if that's what we get, there will be a t-shirt. Like you can count on that. The LA Kings are not going to flop. They just beat the Ottawa Senators 4-3 in OT. 4-3 in OT. 4-3 in OT. Oh, the poor guys that Locked On Senators. Oh boy, those guys have had a season. Cam Talbot though, 28 out of 31. What's Talbot at for stats this season? He's starting to rebound a little bit. 18, 14, and 6, 2.45 and a 9.16 save percentage. Being a regular listener to Locked On Senators as I am, the Senators are in like year 19 of their current rebuild. It has not been great. Yeah, not good at all. Wild are in deep trouble of what? Making the playoffs? Who's had a bigger disappointing season, the Sabres or I'm going to say the Senators, because the Senators have insisted that they are a playoff caliber team for like 6 straight seasons. They have insisted that they are a playoff team. Buffalo last year was like, hey, turns out we can score a bunch of goals. But this year they have not been able to score as much. But the Senators, even before the season started, were like, this is the year. This is the year that we finally get to the postseason. And, well, how did that work? Denny, I've seen several goalies have a bad year and come back. It's mostly the brain thing. And I think there is part of it, too, that Gustafsson, the league figured him out this year. The league figured out the areas that he can be attacked, particularly up high. He just has not adjusted for the most part to that plan of attack from opposing teams. And so there certainly is potential for him to right that in the offseason. It's just it's been a struggle for him for most of the season so far this year. Folks, Murat is imminent. I can confirm that Russo said, I don't have my own sources yet. Russo, I did see the tweet that Russo had saying that Kuznetsov is going to be flying to Minnesota, expected late tomorrow night, and then should be able to practice with the team I think they are going to have I think they're going to have a practice on Saturday. I think the hope is that he can get to Minnesota to at least be on the ice for Saturday's practice, which is a huge, huge step forward and a huge step towards him getting into the lineup, which is great. That'll be absolutely elite. Whoever says you shouldn't tank for a rebuild because you won't win a cup, the Avalanche, the Lightning, the Blackhawks, the Penguins, Washington, Los Angeles, all say differently. Yeah, Cinerary, this is, honestly, I'm probably going to have to do a full episode on this, because not only do you see those teams like get that upper echelon top end talent, but they don't they give themselves the flexibility to cultivate the rest of the roster, in addition to having those top level guys. That's the thing with Vegas. Vegas hasn't drafted their way to winning the Stanley Cup. They traded their way to it. It's all about being a GM and being able to kind of maneuver your way through without getting comfortable and complacent. That's the big key. So that's why those teams continue to be good. How many times have we pointed out that the Colorado Avalanche won the trade deadline? It seems like they do on almost a yearly basis. While Eichel was a number 2 overall pick, he was acquired by the Vegas Golden Knights for Alex Tuck, amongst others. So Vegas has just have been willing to go out and get the pieces that they need. Mark Stone acquired by the Vegas Golden Knights. Jack Eichel acquired by the Vegas Golden Knights. Jonathan Marchessault. It's just having a vision as a GM of what you want and how to go get it. Because here's the other part of this too, is that if you are in your current window and you have prospects in the system that are a ways out, how are they going to help you right now? That's the willingness that some of these other teams have been able to pick up these high-end players, is because they view the prospects now that are 3 or 4 years away as not as much of a help as a guy that can help you right now. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into it from a GM perspective, but Colorado just routinely makes moves to keep their window open. Vegas, same thing. They also seem to have a ton of players that end up on long-term injured reserve every season. It's until they say that putting players on long-term injured reserve is illegal, Vegas is going to keep doing it. It's just the creative way that they have come up with to allow themselves a little extra flexibility as the season unfolds. And with that, I think I am going to begin wrapping it up here for tonight. This is a tease. Denny's got some updates. I look forward to hearing them. That is an exciting comment to leave us on. But Minnesota Wild pick up the win here, 5-2. They'll take on the Colorado Avalanche tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Trade deadline is at 2 p.m. Central. We will have some reaction for you after the trade deadline tomorrow. So make sure to stick around on YouTube. I'll try to get that scheduled so that you've got some advance to keep an eye on it. But make sure to hit the like button before you head out here for the night. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And make sure to trade Capriz. Appreciate everybody tuning in here tonight to yet another Locked On Wild postcast. We will have you covered after tomorrow's game against the Colorado Avalanche. We also have you covered all week long. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes here throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.